My girlfriend cheated, replaced me with a scammer, then he robbed her and she killed him. Now she's begging me to take her back while covered in blood. Hey, Reddit. My name is Ryan, and this is the story of how the woman I loved betrayed me, lost everything, and then came crawling back, covered in blood. I was gone for 1 week. 7 damn days. A business trip overseas, locked in meetings, running on airport coffee and overpriced hotel dinners. I was exhausted, but every night I called Isabella, the woman I had built a life with for the past 6 years. At first, things seemed normal. She answered my calls, smiled at me through the screen, even wrapped herself in my hoodie the way she always did when she missed me. But something felt off. The calls were shorter. She was distracted. Her responses were dull, almost rehearsed. I told her I landed the biggest deal of my career, one that would set me up for an executive promotion, and all she said was, "That's nice, babe." No excitement. No questions. Just those 3 lifeless words. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. She's just busy. Stressed. Tired. But then, 3 days before my flight home, something happened that shattered every illusion. I called her late one night. She picked up, sitting on our bed, the soft glow of our bedroom lamp behind her. She was in one of my shirts, hair up in that messy bun I loved so much. "Hey, baby," she said, smiling. For a second, everything felt normal. But then I heard it. A laugh. A deep, unmistakably male laugh. I froze. That wasn't the TV. That was real. My stomach twisted as I asked, "Who's there?" Isabella didn't even blink. Just a show. Some stupid comedy. I knew the sound of our apartment. I knew how our TV projected noise. And I knew that was a damn lie. I didn't push it. Not then. But that moment replayed in my head over and over on the flight home. I wanted to believe she would have an explanation. That I was paranoid. That everything was fine. But when I got back, I slid my key into the lock and it didn't fit. Frowning, I tried again. Same key. Same door. The home we built together. But now? It was locked to me. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Isabella. "I've moved on. Don't come in." I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. I've moved on. No explanation. No apology. Just a locked door and a text message like I was some casual fling she got bored of. I tried to call. Straight to voicemail. I knocked on the door hard. No answer. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't alone. There was someone in there with her. In her bed. In her home. I gripped my suitcase so hard my knuckles turned white. My first instinct was to kick the door down, to rip this new guy out of my life piece by piece. But I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. So, I turned around, got in my car, and drove. I don't even remember how long I drove before stopping at some roadside motel. I checked in, dropped my bags, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just processing. That's when I called Nathan. Nathan wasn't just my best friend. He was my weapon. A private investigator with connections in every dark corner of the city. If there was dirt to dig up, he would find it. I told him what happened. In under an hour, he called back. "You're not gonna like this," he said. "Try me." His name's Dominic. Some rich playboy from out of town. Owns nightclubs. Runs with some bad people. He doesn't date women, he collects them. Uses them, drains their money, then dumps them when they're empty. I exhaled slowly, gripping the phone tighter. So, she didn't just leave me. She walked into a goddamn trap. Yeah, man. She played you. And now he's playing her. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. Isabella hadn't just replaced me, she downgraded. But something wasn't adding up. She wasn't rich. We lived comfortably, but Dominic's lifestyle? It was way beyond what she could afford. So where the hell was the money coming from? I grabbed my laptop and logged into our old shared accounts. At first, nothing looked unusual. But then I dug deeper, and what I found made my blood run cold. Over $100,000 spent in just the past month. A brand new sports car. Luxury hotels. Shopping sprees. High-end jewelry. And then I saw the worst part. Massive unexplained wire transfers from her company's business account. She wasn't just spending money, she was stealing it. And here's the best part. I still had access. When we got together, Isabella was a struggling entrepreneur. I built her empire with her. I handled the finances, structured her investments, helped her grow. Even when she started pulling away these last few months, she never revoked my access. Which meant I had control. I leaned back in the chair, exhaling slowly. She thought she won. She thought she replaced me, kicked me out of my own home, and ran off into the sunset with some nightclub king. But what she didn't realize, she had just handed me the power to destroy her. I didn't waste any time. The second I realized Isabella had been stealing from her own company, I knew exactly what to do. First, I called Nathan back. She's funneling money, I told him. Big money. Through her business accounts. There was a pause. Then he let out a low whistle. Damn, that's not small-time cheating. That's fraud. Yeah, I said. And I still have access. Nathan laughed. Oh, this is about to get real interesting. And he was right. Because now, I wasn't just some guy who got screwed over. I was the guy holding all the cards. I spent the next 2 hours digging through every financial transaction. It was worse than I thought. She wasn't just spending company money. She was covering for Dominic. She paid for his hotel stays, his expensive dinners, his lifestyle. The guy wasn't just using her. He was bleeding her dry. And she had no clue. I took screenshots, bank statements, wire transfers, proof of everything. Then I drafted a single email to her company's board of directors. Subject: Urgent, financial irregularities in company accounts. I kept it simple. Just the facts. No emotions. No accusations. Just cold, hard evidence that their CEO was misusing company funds. Then, right before hitting send, I added one last line. I advise immediate action before this escalates into a legal matter. Then I sent it. And just like that, Isabella's entire world was about to collapse. The next day, my phone blew up. First, from Isabella. Missed call. Another one. And another. Then the text started. Ryan, we need to talk. Please answer me. This isn't what you think. I didn't respond. Then, an hour later, Nathan called. Dude, you seeing this? I frowned. Seeing what? Check the news. Now. I pulled up my laptop, clicked the first local business site, and there it was. Breaking. CEO Isabella Carter under investigation for financial misconduct. I actually laughed. Out loud. It had only been a few hours, and her company was already in full panic mode. I kept scrolling. Some investors were pulling out. The board was holding emergency meetings. She was suspended pending investigation. Her whole empire was crumbling. And she had no idea it was me. That night I got another call. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then her voice. Ryan. I leaned back in my chair. Isabella. She sounded different. Shaky. Not her usual confident self. I know what you did. I smirked. Did what? Don't play dumb. You sent those files. I shrugged. Even though she couldn't see me. I just thought your company deserved to know where their money was going. Silence. Then, in a small, broken voice, I made a mistake that almost made me laugh. A mistake? No. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is losing your keys. This was her ruining her own life. Yeah, I said. You did. Then I hung up. 2 days later, Nathan showed up at my place, beer in hand, grinning like an idiot. You're gonna love this. He tossed his phone onto the table. I picked it up and pressed play. It was security footage from a high-end hotel lobby. And right there, in crystal clear HD, was Dominic, dragging 3 suitcases behind him. Alone. I stared. No way. Nathan nodded. Yup. The second Isabella's company cut her off, he bailed. Wiped his socials. Blocked her number. Dude vanished. I shook my head. Unbelievable. Actually, no. Totally believable. This was exactly who Dominic was. A user. A leech. Parasite. And Isabella? She had thrown away everything for him. Her home. Her job. Her money. And now, she had nothing. That night, I was sitting on my couch, finally feeling like I could relax, when there was a knock at my door. It was late. Too late. I frowned and checked the peephole, and my whole body went cold. It was her. Isabella. But something was wrong. She wasn't dressed up like usual. No perfect makeup, no designer clothes. She looked destroyed. Hair a mess. Eyes red and swollen. Her clothes were stained. And then I saw her hands. Shaking. Covered in something dark. I unlocked the door slowly. What the hell happened to you? She swallowed hard. Her voice was barely a whisper. Ryan, I need your help. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, staring at her. She looked nothing like the Isabella the first knew. The confident, put-together woman who used to walk around in designer heels. Acting like she owned the world? Gone. Now she was shaking. Her hair was a mess, tangled like she hadn't brushed it in days. Her eyes were red, swollen. But the worst part? Her hands. They were covered in something dark. Something thick. Blood. Cold knot formed in my stomach. I stepped forward. Isabella, what the hell is going on? She glanced over her shoulder, as if someone might be watching her. Then she looked back at me, her lips trembling. Can I come in? Everything in me told me to say no. To shut the door in her face and let her deal with whatever nightmare she'd gotten herself into. But instead I stepped aside. She walked in, hugging herself, her whole body tense. I shut the door behind her and crossed my arms. Start talking. She swallowed hard. Something happened to Dominic. The second she said his name, I felt that old anger bubbling up again. What do you mean, something happened? She rubbed her hands together like she was trying to wipe something off. But there was nothing there now. Just dried smears of red. He's dead. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I blinked. What? She finally looked up at me. Her lips parted like she was about to explain, but nothing came out. She was terrified. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Okay. How? Her hands curled into fists. I don't know. She stopped, her chest rising and falling too fast. She was spiraling. I grabbed her shoulders. Hey. Breathe. Start from the beginning. She squeezed her eyes shut for a second, then nodded. I went to his place tonight, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to talk. He wasn't answering my calls, my texts. He just disappeared. Yeah, I knew that part already. He took her money and ran. When I got there, the door was unlocked, she continued. I went inside and her breath hitched. I already knew what was coming, but I let her say it. He was there. On the floor. Covered in blood. I exhaled slowly, my jaw clenching. And you touched him. She nodded quickly like she just realized how bad it looked. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe he was still alive, but he wasn't. And then I heard something like someone outside, so I ran. I didn't know where else to go. So she came here. To me. The ex she cheated on. The guy she threw away for a scammer. Unbelievable. I ran a hand down my face. Jesus Christ, Isabella. She grabbed my wrist, her fingers ice cold. Ryan, please. You have to help me. I pulled away. Help you? Are you out of your mind? You were found at a crime scene, covered in blood. What do you think is gonna happen when the cops find out? Tears filled her eyes. I didn't kill him. I didn't even know if I believed her. She was desperate. That much was obvious. And the Isabella the first knew? She wasn't the type to get her hands dirty. She used people. Let them do the work for her. But still. Dominic was dead. And she was the last person to see him alive. I sighed. Did anyone see you go in? She hesitated. I don't think so. That wasn't good enough. I grabbed my phone and dialed Nathan. He picked up on the second ring. Yo, what's up? I glanced at Isabella. She was pacing now, chewing on her lip, a nervous wreck. I need you to look something up for me. Dominic Russo. Find out if the cops are already on this. There was a pause. Then, wait. That's the guy Isabella left you for, right? Yeah. Another pause. Why are you asking? I ran a hand through my hair. Because he's dead. Nathan swore under his breath. Give me a sec. I could hear him typing. Isabella kept pacing, muttering to herself. I was starting to wonder if letting her inside was a mistake. Then Nathan came back on the line. Shit. It's already out, he said. Someone found the body about an hour ago. Cops are looking into it. That was not what I wanted to hear. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Is Isabella's name in any of the reports yet? Not yet. But it's only a matter of time. I lowered the phone and looked at her. You need to leave. She stopped pacing. What? If the cops come here, I'm not getting dragged into this mess with you. Tears spilled down her face. Ryan, please. I don't have anywhere else to go. I clenched my fists. A week ago, I would have given anything for her to show up at my door. To say she made a mistake. To beg for me back. But not like this. I had two choices. One, kick her out and let her deal with whatever was coming. Or two, get involved. Help her. Find out what really happened before the cops did. I already knew what the smart move was. But then she whispered, I think someone was watching me. That made me pause. What do you mean? When I ran out of Dominic's place, I felt it. Like someone was following me. I studied her. Did you see anyone? She shook her head. No. But when I got to my car, there was a note on my windshield. She reached into her coat, pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, and handed it to me. I smoothed it out. For words were scrawled in black ink. You're next, Isabella. My stomach dropped. Okay. This just got a whole lot worse. I stared at the note, my mind racing. You're next, Isabella. This wasn't just some messy breakup with a scammer. This was something else. I lifted my eyes to her. She was watching me, waiting for a reaction, her whole body tense. You didn't think to mention this earlier? I asked. She wrapped her arms around herself. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I still am. I ran a hand down my face. This was bad. If Dominic was dead and Isabella had a target on her back, then whoever wrote this note wasn't done. And now she was standing in my apartment. I grabbed my phone and called Nathan again. The second he picked up, I skipped the greetings. Change of plans. Someone's after Isabella. There was a pause. Then, what the hell did you just say? I dropped onto the couch, still gripping the note. When she ran out of Dominic's place, she found a message on her car. A threat. Nathan swore. You think it's connected to his murder? Has to be, I said. Whoever killed him doesn't want her talking. I heard typing on his end. All right. Let me dig into Dominic. See if he owed someone money or pissed off the wrong person. Stay put. I hung up and looked at Isabella. She was standing there, chewing her lip, still shaking a little. Let me see your phone, I said. She hesitated but handed it over. I scrolled through her messages. Texts to Dominic all unanswered. Nothing weird. Then I checked her recent calls. One number kept popping up. No name saved, just a series of missed calls, all within the last few hours. Who's this? I asked, showing her the number. She leaned in, frowning. I don't know. I didn't answer. I dialed it. It rang twice, then disconnected. Weird. I tried calling again. This time it went straight to voicemail. No greeting, just silence. I handed her phone back. If they call again, let me know. She nodded, clutching the device like it was a lifeline. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Nathan. Got something, he said. That was fast. You're not gonna like it, he said. Dominic wasn't just a scammer. He was deep into some bad shit. Gambling debts, laundering money for some real shady people. And guess what? He owed them a lot. I exhaled slowly. So what, they killed him? Probably, Nathan said. And if they think Isabella knows something, well, you saw the note. I glanced at her. She was hugging herself again, staring at the floor. They're coming for her, I muttered. Yeah, Nathan said. And if you don't want to be next, you better figure out what she knows. I hung up and turned to Isabella. Tell me everything Dominic ever said about his business. Every sketchy detail. Now. She blinked, caught off guard. I don't know much. He never told me specifics. I pushed. Did he ever mention names? Places? She swallowed hard. There was one guy. He called him Vince. I don't know his last name, but Dominic was always stressed whenever he talked about him. I sat back, crossing my arms. And you don't know what kind of business they had? She shook her head. No. But I know Dominic was hiding something. A few weeks ago, he started keeping this folder with him everywhere. Wouldn't let me near it. Always locked it up when he left the room. My pulse quickened. Where's the folder now? She hesitated. Probably still in his apartment. I clenched my jaw. That meant one thing. We had to go back. I wasn't about to play hero, but if Dominic had proof of what he was involved in, it might be the only way to stop whoever was after Isabella. She must have seen the look on my face because she took a step back. Ryan, no. I can't go back there. You don't have a choice, I said. That folder might have the answers we need. She shook her head, panic flashing across her face. What if someone's still there? I grabbed my jacket. Then we better move fast. Isabella didn't argue after that. She was scared, and honestly, she had every reason to be. But if we were going to survive this, we needed to know what Dominic had been involved in. And that meant going back to his apartment. The drive over was tense. She sat in the passenger seat, arms wrapped around herself, staring out the window like she was waiting for someone to jump out of the shadows. I kept my eyes on the road, mind racing through every possible way this could go wrong. We pulled up a block away from Dominic's place. His apartment was in a high-rise downtown, one of those luxury buildings that looked nice from the outside but had just enough shady tenants to make it feel off. I killed the engine and turned to Isabella. We go in, get the folder, and get out. No wasting time. You good? She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't. Didn't matter. We were doing this. The building lobby was mostly empty. A security guard sat behind the front desk, but he was half asleep, barely paying attention. We walked past like we belonged there, took the elevator up to the 12th floor, and stepped into the hallway. Isabella led the way to Dominic's door. She reached into her bag, pulled out a key, and hesitated. "What if someone's already been here?" she whispered. "Only one way to find out," I said. She swallowed hard, then unlocked the door. The second it swung open, I knew something was wrong. The place was trashed. Couch cushions ripped apart. Drawers pulled from the cabinets. Papers scattered everywhere. Someone had already searched the place. Isabella gasped. "Oh my God." I grabbed her wrist before she could step inside. "Wait." She looked at me confused. I pointed to the floor. Near the kitchen, a half-dried pool of blood stained the tiles. More than what I imagined Dominic had lost. That meant one thing. "Whoever did this," I said, lowering my voice, "they were looking for something." Her breathing sped up. "The folder." I scanned the room, taking everything in. Maybe. Or maybe they thought Dominic had something bigger. She moved toward the bedroom. He always kept it in his safe. I followed her, keeping my ears open for any sounds in the hallway. The last thing we needed was someone coming back. The bedroom was just as bad as the rest of the apartment. The mattress was flipped, clothes thrown everywhere. But the safe? Still locked. I exhaled. They couldn't crack it. Isabella knelt down, hands shaking as she punched in a code. The lock clicked open. She pulled the door open, and there it was. A thick, black folder. I grabbed it and flipped through the contents. Bank statements. Fake IDs. Account numbers. Then I saw the names. My stomach twisted. Nathan was right, I muttered. Dominic was working with some serious criminals. Isabella leaned in. "What does it say?" I held up a document. It was a contract. A loan agreement. "For 200 grand, I said. She paled. "From who?" I pointed at the signature on the bottom. "Vincent Moretti." Isabella covered her mouth. "That's him. That's Vince." I didn't know much about Moretti, but I knew the name. If Dominic owed him money and didn't pay up, then yeah, he was dead the second Moretti decided he was useless. And now, whoever was after Dominic's money probably thought Isabella knew where it was. I snapped the folder shut. "We need to leave. Now." She didn't argue. We moved fast, but the second I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. A man stood at the end of the hall. Dark suit. Buzzed hair. Watching us. The second we locked eyes, he reached into his jacket. I grabbed Isabella's wrist. "Run." We didn't hesitate. The second I saw that guy reach into his jacket, I yanked Isabella's wrist and bolted down the hall. Behind us, I heard the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. "Move." I hissed, practically shoving her forward. She didn't need to be told twice. We sprinted toward the elevator, but I already knew that was a dead end, too slow, too risky. Instead, I veered left, dragging her toward the stairwell. The door slammed open as we rushed inside. The second it closed behind us, I heard footsteps pounding after us. He was coming. Faster. I barked. We flew down the stairs, taking 2, 3 at a time. My heart was hammering, adrenaline flooding my system. I wasn't sure if Isabella was crying or just gasping for breath, but she kept running. Then, right as we hit the 3rd floor, the stairwell door below us swung open. Another guy stepped in. We were trapped. Isabella let out a choked gasp. I yanked her to a stop, mind racing. 2 of them. One above, one below. We had nowhere to go except one last door. I grabbed the handle for the maintenance access level and shoved it open. We stumbled into a narrow hallway lined with electrical panels, the air thick with dust and the hum of machines. "Come on," I whispered, pulling her forward. We moved fast, weaving between old storage shelves, pushing past cleaning supplies. Then I spotted an emergency exit at the end of the hall. A fire escape. I rushed toward it, but right as I reached for the handle, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I barely had time to react before a fist slammed into my ribs. Pain exploded through my side, knocking the air out of my lungs. Isabella screamed. I stumbled, but years of instinct kicked in. I fought back. I twisted free, throwing an elbow into the guy's jaw. He grunted, but before he could recover, I slammed him into the electrical panel. There was a loud crack, and the guy went down. Isabella was frozen, eyes wide with terror. I grabbed her arm. "Go. Now." She fumbled for the door and shoved it open. Cold night air hit us as we stumbled onto the fire escape. We didn't stop. We tore down the metal stairs, the sound of our footsteps echoing through the alley. I half expected gunshots, but nothing came. By the time we hit the ground, my lungs were burning. My side ached from where that guy hit me, but I ignored it. "Car, where's your car?" Isabella gasped. "Around the block," I said. "Come on." We ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until we threw ourselves into my car. The second I started the engine, I peeled out of there. We didn't speak for the first 5 minutes. Just sat there, catching our breath, adrenaline still pumping. Then, finally, Isabella turned to me, her face pale. They're going to kill me, aren't they? I gripped the wheel. Not if we figure out what the hell Dominic was hiding. I drove fast, constantly checking the mirrors, making sure we weren't being followed. My brain was in overdrive, running through every possible scenario. We had Dominic's folder, which meant we had something those guys wanted. And they were willing to kill for it. Isabella was silent beside me, her hands trembling in her lap. She hadn't said a word since we left Dominic's building. I could tell she was barely holding it together. I pulled into a gas station parking lot and killed the engine. It was late, the streets were mostly empty, but I needed a second to think. I turned to her. We need to figure out what Dominic was into. There's something in that folder that's worth more than his life. She nodded, swallowing hard. Okay. I grabbed the folder and flipped it open, scanning through the documents again. Most of it was bank transfers, fake business accounts, offshore payments. But then, I saw something new. A USB drive tucked into a plastic sleeve. I pulled it out and held it up. This might be it. Isabella looked at it like it was a ticking bomb. What's on it? I didn't answer. I reached into the glove compartment, pulled out an old laptop I kept for work, and plugged the USB in. A single video file popped up. No label. No title. Just a timestamp. From 3 nights ago. I clicked it. The screen flickered to life. It was security footage. A grainy, black and white view of a hotel suite. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Just an expensive room, a bar cart in the corner, city lights visible through the massive windows. Then the door opened. And Dominic walked in. Isabella sucked in a sharp breath. He looked nervous. Pacing. Checking his phone. Then, the door opened again. A man stepped inside. Tall. Well-dressed. Older. But something about him felt dangerous. He and Dominic spoke, but the footage didn't have sound. Still, I could tell it wasn't a friendly conversation. Dominic was pleading. The man stayed still, just listening. Then, without warning, the man pulled a gun and shot Dominic twice in the chest. Isabella gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. On screen, Dominic collapsed, blood spilling across the hotel carpet. The man calmly put the gun away, grabbed Dominic's phone, and left. The video ended. Silence filled the car. Isabella was shaking. That's her voice cracked. That's Vincent Moretti. I clenched my jaw. Yeah. And now we know who really killed Dominic. I ejected the USB and sat back, exhaling slowly. Moretti didn't kill Dominic over a debt. He killed him because Dominic had this footage. And now we had it. Isabella turned to me, eyes wide. Ryan, we're dead. I didn't answer right away. Because she was right. If Moretti found out we had this video, he wouldn't stop until we were both in the ground. I closed the laptop and gripped the USB tight in my hand. My mind was racing. We had proof that Vincent Moretti executed Dominic, and that meant one thing, we were targets now. Isabella was still shaking beside me. She wiped her face with her hands, trying to keep it together. Ryan, what do we do? I stared out the windshield, thinking. We have 2 options. 1, we disappear. Get as far away from this as possible and hope Moretti never finds us. She swallowed hard. And 2, I looked at her. We take him down before he takes us down. Her breath hitched. You're serious? I nodded. This video is leverage. If we play it right, we can use it to protect ourselves. She shook her head. No. You don't get it. Moretti doesn't negotiate. If he knows we have this, he'll kill us just like he killed Dominic. I leaned forward, gripping the wheel. Then we make sure he doesn't know. Silence. She was panicking, and honestly, she had every right to. This was way beyond anything we had ever dealt with. But I wasn't about to roll over and die. I pulled out my phone and dialed Nathan. He picked up immediately. Tell me you're somewhere safe. We have a problem, I said. A big one. I explained the video, keeping my voice low. Nathan didn't say a word until I was finished. Then he sighed. Jesus Christ, Ryan. Do you even know what you just walked into? Oh, I have a pretty good idea, I muttered. There was a pause. Then, all right. Listen carefully. You need to get off the grid. Right now. Moretti has eyes everywhere, and if he finds out you have that footage, you're both dead. Yeah, well, disappearing isn't exactly an option, I said. We need to use this video, but we need to be smart. Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice deadly serious. There's only one way to handle this. You need to make sure that if something happens to you, this video goes public. I exhaled. He was right. The only way to protect ourselves was to make sure Moretti knew that if we ended up dead, his secret wouldn't die with us. I glanced at Isabella. We need to make copies of this. A lot of copies. She nodded quickly. And send them to who? I gritted my teeth. The cops. The press. People who can actually do something with it. Nathan cut in. No. Not the cops. I frowned. Why not? Because Moretti owns half the police in this city, he said. If you send this to the wrong person, it'll disappear, and so will you. I cursed under my breath. He had a point. Then who do we send it to? Isabella asked. Nathan hesitated. Then he said something I didn't expect. I know a guy. FBI. Not corrupt. If anyone can use this video to take Moretti down, it's him. FBI. This just kept getting worse. I rubbed a hand over my face. Fine. Give me his info. Nathan sent me the contact and I immediately forwarded the video to a secure cloud server. If anything happened to us, at least the evidence wouldn't be lost. I turned to Isabella. We need to leave. Now. She nodded, but she looked pale. Ryan, what if this doesn't work? I started the car. Then we're dead anyway. And with that I floored it, taking us into the night. I drove like my life depended on it, because it did. Isabella was silent beside me, hugging her arms, her knee bouncing like she was barely holding it together. I couldn't blame her. This wasn't just about Dominic's murder anymore. Now, we had the kind of evidence that could take down Vincent Moretti, one of the most dangerous men in the city. And if we weren't careful, he'd bury us before we even got the chance. I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. We need a place to hide out for the night. Isabella chewed on her lip. Where? Nathan's voice echoed in my head. Get off the grid. Stay somewhere nobody will think to look. I knew exactly where to go. My uncle's old cabin, I said. It's outside the city, no cameras, no neighbors. We'll be safe there. She nodded quickly, not arguing. That alone told me how scared she was. I merged onto the highway, taking the exit that led out of town. The drive was just over an hour, but I kept checking the mirrors, making sure we weren't being followed. Every set of headlights behind us made my pulse spike. By the time we reached the cabin, my nerves were shot. The place was nothing fancy, just a small wooden house in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick trees. It hadn't been used in years, but I still had a key. I killed the engine and turned to Isabella. Come on. She hesitated before stepping out, wrapping her arms around herself as the cold night air hit. I unlocked the door and flipped the lights on. Dust covered everything, but it was safe. That's all that mattered. She stood in the doorway, still looking shaky. You okay? I asked. She let out a breath. No. But I don't think I will be for a long time. Fair enough. I shut the door behind us and locked it. Then I pulled out my phone and called Nathan. We're at the cabin, I said. Tell your FBI guy we have the footage. Nathan sighed. All right. But Ryan, be careful. Moretti isn't the kind of guy who lets loose ends walk away. I hung up, my grip tightening on the phone. Isabella sat down on the couch, staring at nothing. Ryan, she whispered. What if we don't make it out of this? I sat beside her. We will, I said. But only if we stay ahead of him. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. And if we can't? I exhaled. Then we go down fighting. Neither of us slept that night. Every creak of the cabin made Isabella jump, and even though I told myself we were safe for now, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was coming. By morning, my phone buzzed. Nathan. I answered immediately. Tell me you have good news. His voice was low. FBI guy's in. He wants to meet. Today. I exhaled. Where? Neutral ground. A parking garage, downtown. Level 5. No cameras, no cops. I glanced at Isabella. She was staring at me, waiting. We'll be there, I said, then hung up. The drive back into the city was tense. Every car behind us felt like a tale. Every stoplight felt like a setup. I pulled into the garage, parked, and killed the engine. The place was mostly empty except for a single black sedan a few rows ahead. A man in a dark suit stood beside it, arms crossed. This him? Isabella whispered. Yeah, I said. Stay close. We stepped out and approached. The man looked us up and down before speaking. Nathan says you have something I need to see. I pulled the USB from my pocket and held it up. This has everything. Dominic was killed by Moretti. We have the video to prove it. The agent took the drive and pocketed it without even looking at it. That's enough to put him away for life, but Moretti has connections. If he finds out about this, you're dead before I can build a case. I glanced at Isabella. She already knew that. She'd been running since the second Dominic died. The agent continued. I'll put this through the right channels, but you two need to disappear. Permanently. Isabella grabbed my arm. That's it? You expect us to just run forever? The agent's expression didn't change. If you want to stay alive, yes. I clenched my jaw. I wasn't the type to run. But I also wasn't stupid. Moretti wasn't gonna stop until he was locked up or we were dead. Fine, I said. Just make sure this works. The agent gave me one last look, then got in his car and drove off. I turned to Isabella. We need to go. Now. She hesitated. Where? Anywhere but here. We got back in the car and drove. Away from the city. Away from everything. I didn't know where we were going, and for the first time in my life I didn't care. All that mattered was that we were still breathing. For now.